Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Pep Talk Podcast. And today's episode is called What is Clutter Costing You? And I am joined here in the studio by Barbara Hemphill. And I'm going to go ahead and get that picture off of here, Barbara, and let's just, you and I, have a conversation.
It's one of my favorite topics,
Exactly. Oh, my goodness. So those of you joining in, has anybody ever asked you that question? What is clutter costing you? Have you ever thought about that question? Right? So give that some thought. Think about that for a minute. And, all too often we tolerate clutter without realizing what it's really costing us. And in many cases, it's difficult to see the direct correlations. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Right, Barbara?
That's true. And the other thing is that you often don't even see the clutter because you become so used to it that it just, you just don't see it. So you're not seeing the clutter, and you're certainly not seeing what it's costing you. But at the end of this podcast today, you will.
Amen. So let's just jump right in. We've got 10 hidden costs of clutter. I'm sure there's more, but these are the top 10 hidden costs of clutter based on and I say that loosely, our 40 years in the professional organizing industry. Actually, if you add ours together, it's more like 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot of years.
That's scary, isn't it?
Oh my goodness. And for those of you that don't know, Barbara Hemphill is actually one of the founders of the entire professional organizing industry and certainly productivity industry. So you guys are in good hands. But let's talk about the first one, Barbara, the first item that is a cost of clutter. And I think many people can relate to this. If you're joining us on whatever channel you're watching us on, there should be a place to comment. Please comment if this is something that you experience as a cost of clutter. All right, so let me go ahead and put it up on the screen. Stress and anxiety. Stress and anxiety. Does anybody feel stress and anxiety when you stop long enough to take a look around you at your clutter, or you walk into your space and you see it? Stress and anxiety. Barbara, what do you have to share about that?
Well, I don't think there's anybody today that isn't feeling stress and anxiety. I mean, certainly I do, because it's a stressful world that we live in. There's plenty of reasons to be anxious, both in our personal lives and in the state of the world. But one of the principles of Productive Environment Institute is that you control what you can so you can cope with what you can't. So if you watch the news and see about the war in Israel and you think, oh my gosh, well, there's probably not anything about that. But if you look around your environment, your physical environment, your digital environment, or even we talk about the environment in your head. What are the messages that you're saying to yourself? Or I'm too old to do that, and it's too late to do that, and I'm never successful. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and frustrated about anything, there is undoubtedly some clutter that's associated with it. And it may well be physical clutter. It's so interesting. We are a society where we are bombarded by physical things all the time. I don't care how organized you are. I just ordered a new Apple product recently. And when I unpacked it, it's like, oh, the box that they put it in is so beautiful. I mean, it's like, oh, what can I do with this? And it's like letting go of this. And then, okay, I want to be environmentally responsible for it. And then I have to think about that. So how do you identify what is clutter in your life? And one of the questions that we use over and over is, does this help me accomplish my work and enjoy my life? Well, the box that I took my Apple product out of is not going to help me accomplish my work or enjoy my life, and I therefore cannot afford it. So one action that you can take every day, all day, very kind of routinely, you make it part of your workday, is to just constantly be aware of the small things that you see that are not helping you accomplish your work and enjoy your life, and then getting rid of them.
Amen. Yeah, Kathy Music joining us from New Path Productivity says thumbs up to stress and anxiety. She knows that. She helps people with that. So we see that all the time. Excellent. Let's go to number two. Who can relate to this one? Number two, with the cost of clutter, reduced sleep quality and inability to focus. So imagine whether the clutter is in your bedroom or not, but if wherever it is, does it, and especially, I guess, especially if it is in your bedroom, is it keeping you up at night? Do you have to move things off your bed? Do you have to, just trying to go to sleep? And, our bedroom should be a sanctuary to actually get rest. And if we're just kind of having to bob between things and crawl under the covers, are you getting quality sleep? Barbara, what are your thoughts on reduced sleep quality and inability to focus?
Well, first of all, other than my relationship to God, I don't think there's anything more important in my life than sleep. I mean, we were created to need rest, and we often don't get enough of it. I didn't get enough of it for years and ended up with chronic fatigue. Although it's interesting, Romans 8:28 says all things work together for good, and I have a great example about that because it was my chronic fatigue that prompted me to ask Andrea if she would help me run my business, and then ultimately became the president. So it's like that was years ago, but God does amazing things. But sleep is really, really important. It's important to our physical bodies, but more importantly, perhaps, or just as importantly, is to our brain. That's the time. All the research about brain studies shows that's when the brain literally eliminates the clutter. I mean, I can't even understand that, but I trust the scientists who have proven that. I've had many examples of people where they've learned how clutter affects their sleep. One of them that I've had several times actually is where I've had clients who couldn't sleep, and then we identified that when they traveled, they slept perfectly. And when we explored it, it's like the reason is when you're in that hotel room, you're not surrounded by all of that clutter. And because you're in another environment, you're also not surrounded by those thoughts bombarding you of what you didn't do or what you should do or what you haven't accomplished. So exploring what you need to do in order to get sleep is an extremely high priority. I had a joke. My husband's a great Tar Heel basketball fan, and they had a game the other night at 9:00 p.m. in Chapel Hill, which is an hour away from us. And he asked a friend if he wanted to go, and the friend says, "I'm in bed by that time." and I'm always headed on my way to bed between 9 and 10 p.m. And one of the pastors that I follow, Pastor Vlad Savchuk, says, going to bed early often prevents you from making the mistakes that you would have made after 10 p.m., which I think is awesome.
Great advice. Great advice. All right. So number three, and this one may seem a little obvious and may overlap some of the others, but decreased productivity. And that's something we talk about within Productive Environment Institute a lot. And actually in our office transformation boot camp, we talk about that where, you're spending time looking for misplaced information, documents, you're looking for something on your desk and you can't find it. You've printed something, you can't find it, so you print it again, and things like that. I'm sure, Barbara, you've got a zillion examples of that. But how does clutter decrease our productivity? I mean, that just seems like such a simplistic question for you, but yeah,
Well,
decrease
here's the
productivity.
statement that relates to it is your ability to accomplish any task or goal is directly related to your ability to find what you need when you need it. So that doesn't matter if it's making breakfast in the morning and you can't find the spice you want to put into that new dish that you're trying, or you've run out of the kind of sweetener you use in your coffee and you can't find it, or you bought it but you're not sure where you put it, or whether it's the document you're looking for. You're with a client and suddenly there's a document you need to prove something. I had that happen just this week where there was something with a client and the client came back and complained about something, and I had to pull up the document that supported that what I was saying was right, and I was, and I found it in a few seconds. Whereas there are many times that it can take hours to find it. And unfortunately, in some cases, people never find it. So the more you keep, the less you use and the less you can find. So we continually go back to the biggest solution of being more productive is to have less, to keep less, to do less. It's not, they're the biggest myth that I fight with clients and prospects all the time is if I just got organized, I'd be able to do all that. That is a lie. And in our age today, the amount of information we get, most people don't need more information. They need to take more action. And in order to take action, you have to be able to find what you need to take that action.
Awesome. Amen. Number 4, increased errors and mistakes. Is your clutter costing you, are you making errors and mistakes that you wouldn't normally make if you worked in a productive environment? And Barbara, can you share what a definition of a productive environment is?
Oh yeah, we didn't do that at the beginning, and we should have, right?
What does that mean? What is a productive environment?
A productive environment is an intentional setting in which you can accomplish your work and enable others to do the same. I mean, isn't that clear? I just saying that just kind of, that's the kind of environment I want to live in. Now, none of us have one all the time. I mean, I'm not perfect. I can give you lots of examples of where I've messed up, but every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. That was my mother-in-law. She was a polio survivor and a mother of 6 kids, used to say that, and I loved it. And that's true. I am. Even at age 77, there are things that I'm improving and getting better at than I used to. So the kinds of mistakes are things like not submitting an invoice on time. I mean, you have a client and you're supposed to submit an invoice and you submit it or you make a mistake. That happened to me this week. I literally submitted an invoice and I did it incorrectly. I did it incorrectly because I forgot to replace an old document with a new document, and I retrieved the old one. It's going to happen. I mean, we're not, we're human beings. But again, it goes back to one of the words we use all the time, which is systems. And we use the acronym saving you space, time, energy, and money. So when we have systems in place, then it minimizes the times that you're going to make mistakes like that. But when you do, one of my coaches, Melvin Pilet, says you be disappointed for 3 minutes and then you move on. So and also you ask the question, what can I learn from this? How did this mistake happen? And when it happened to me yesterday, it's like, okay, I know what happened and I can fix it, and then it's going to be better next time.
Yeah, and the key word here in Kathy's comment is continued. So with increased errors and mistakes, you're damaging your credibility with continued errors and mistakes. So when you none of us are perfect. We make mistakes, but when you have a productive environment, you can recover from those mistakes and move on. But if you're continuing to make mistake after mistake after mistake, take a look at your environment. Take a look, and maybe clutter is costing you that. So,
well, it has to be there. There isn't any way that you could make a mistake like that and not be able to attribute your environment in some way. It might be your digital environment. It might be the team that you're working with. I mean, maybe that mistake was made by a team member and that team member has made mistakes before. Maybe it's the environment of your systems. Maybe there's something wrong with your system. So the interesting thing about clutter, and I guess the reason I'm so passionate about it after so many years, is that it's everywhere. I mean, clutter is just something that is around us in so many ways that there's virtually nothing that happens that you can't attribute part of it to clutter in some form or another.
Which brings us to number 5, missed opportunities. And the first thing that comes to my mind, Barbara, is is maybe in a networking situation where you've connected with somebody that you considered a really hot prospect, and you're so excited you met them, and this great conversation, and then you get back home or back to your office and you can't find their contact information, or you can't find the notes that you wrote down based on your conversation. That's just one example. But what are your thoughts on missed opportunities?
Well, it's funny because that's exactly the one that came to me. I mean, that one. And as through the years, as I've sat with thousands of people organizing their desk, that one happens with virtually everybody. I mean, that is just one of the things, meeting somebody, getting a business card and sticking it in the desk somewhere and then not knowing where it came from, or putting it on a napkin. And that's one of the things that people are so afraid to throw away. Like, oh, I can't throw that away. That's money. Well, it isn't money if you're not doing anything with it. So this is where one of our other principles comes in, which is today's mail is tomorrow's pile. So one of the things is when there is a missed opportunity that comes because of your clutter, whatever that clutter is, you have to figure out how to stop it. So business cards is a perfect example. If you are someone who collects business cards, then you need, here's that word again, a system. What do you do when that business card comes in? There are so many ways that you can handle it. So many. I mean, there's no one right all the time. But what will you do? What's the easiest for you? Are you physically going to do it? Or are you going to snap a picture of it on your phone, send it to a virtual assistant, and throw the card away? I mean, that's one way that you could do it. And if you send it to your virtual assistant, you might say, and here's the next action. So you would make a picture, photograph the card, say a next action, and then the virtual assistant would be responsible to help you get that in place. That's one example. On the other hand, it might be that you're one that's going to type that in. There are just so many ways. I think, and the other thing is true, missed opportunities in networking alone. So one of the things I've had to learn, which frankly, it took me a long time to learn, and that was not all networking is appropriate for me. And I don't think all networking is appropriate for anybody. There are many, many different kinds. And what would happen to me, I did it, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how many thousands of hours in 40 years I wasted participating in networking opportunities, but then not taking advantage of them because, number one, it wasn't the right place. And number two, I didn't have a system in place to do it. So for example, I'm a member of a very, very powerful mastermind group right now, which I absolutely love. But a couple of times a month, they have what they call fast networking, and it's a Zoom, and you get on it, and there are lots of people, and they go from person to person, and they introduce themselves and say whatever. I tried to get it, absolutely freaked me out. My ADHD kicks in, and I'm miserable because I know that I can't follow up with all these people. I can't write fast enough. I can't remember names, and it just triggers me into horrible kinds of things. So I don't go to that anymore, but I have their directory. So I can go to the directory and find people, or monthly, I guess they have presentations by individual people, and I can listen to those. So it's become very powerful. So when you think about the word opportunity, an opportunity for you may not be the same opportunity as somebody else. So one of the things we say all the time, people say to us, what should I do? And we always come back and say, that's not the right question. The question is, what will you do? So what is the kind of networking that you like to do? And then what systems do you have in place? And where does clutter come into blocking that? Is there something in clutter that is preventing that? And it may be, the clutter may well be some deep emotional stuff about, oh, they wouldn't want to talk to me, or I wouldn't want to waste my time. I wouldn't ask them. I'd be embarrassed to ask them. If I look back over my years and people say, what are some mistakes that you'd made that you'd correct? One of them is that I would realize that people who are successful really are willing to talk to people less successful because they like to encourage them. There's exceptions. I mean, some people are arrogant and don't want to do that. But most people, the kind of people I want to hang out with, are so giving. The Bible says you don't have because you don't ask. Well, sometimes we don't have because we don't ask God. Well, sometimes we don't have because we don't ask the very people who are around us who would be willing to help. And Andrea, you and I have had that. I mean, that's both of us have struggled with that because we don't want to bother each other. And there have been times when if we just would have asked, we could have gotten an answer very quickly. But I don't want to bother you. So don't hesitate to ask.
That's right. That's right. One more thing on this, and it actually is going to segue to the number 6 cost is email. So missed opportunities in your email. Like we've spent a lot of time talking about your physical space and your desk, but your email, your computer, that is also a workspace. That is also an environment that impacts your work. And perhaps there are some opportunities lingering in the emails, but you don't know that because you're so overwhelmed by them. We have clients in our digital transformation boot camp with thousands and thousands and thousands of emails in their inbox. And if that's you, you're not alone. And so there is hope. There is a way to get control of that, of your email inbox. But think about that with missed opportunities. There may be some things hiding in there. And that actually brings us to number 6, negative impact on customer satisfaction. And so are there potentially some emails in your inbox if you're a business owner? And do you have some emails from people requesting something or, have a question or whatever, but you haven't been able to respond to them because it's somewhere in the midst of your inbox? I'm certainly guilty of that. That happens to the best of us. But yeah, negative impact on customer satisfaction as it relates to being a cost of clutter. Barbara, your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a personal example of that. We have a waterfall, a koi fish pond and a waterfall in our backyard. And we've had the same provider for quite a long time. I liked him a lot. He's actually a neighbor and I really wanted to support him. But his customer service was just terrible. I mean, I would ask him a question and he wouldn't answer it. Or the one that was the straw that broke the camel's back, as it says, was he would say, I will bring you such and such, or I will do such and such. And he didn't. And we literally let him go because of that. And I think customer satisfaction it's just so important. It's part of respect. And unfortunately, the respect is something that isn't as common as it ought to be. So responding to customers, deliver more than you promise, under promise and over deliver, as the saying goes. And if you're disorganized, if your email is an email is probably the biggest productivity drain there is in business today. So if your email is out of control, then you need our digital bootcamp transformation, because it's going to prevent you from making the kind of money that you could make and having the kind of business that you could have.
Excellent. All right, number 7, burnout and decreased morale. When you walk into your office or workspace, when we say office, for some of you working at home, that may very well be your dining room table. But when you walk into your space, how does that feel to you? If you are constantly overwhelmed, and that can lead to burnout and decreased morale, like just not feeling good, not feeling confident and empowered in what you do. So Barbara, burnout and decreased morale.
Well, I want to bring up something here that's not related to the office, but it's related to life, and that's your clothes closet. The first thing when you get up in the morning that you go, or certainly maybe the second place, you might go to the coffee pot first, and the second place you probably go is to your clothes closet. And if your clothes closet is stuffed and you can't find the top you want to wear, or you only found one shoe and you can't find the other one, there is no way that does not have an emotional effect on your life. Clutter is postponed decisions, is the core of everything we do, and it's true in your clothes closet. So one of the things that the core really of what we teach is helping you to make decisions. We're not doing it for you. There are organizing consultants that say, this is what you should do. And if you do that, yes, it will work, but we're not all created the same. So we have to figure out what we will do and then do it. And when we do that, we can create an environment, whether it's in our closet or in our email or our kitchen or our workplace, where we feel good. We need to feel good. I had an experience. I hired a feng shui consultant who did lots of wonderful things for me. And I had an office in my home. It was upstairs. It's a big office. When I used to have employees, it was a bigger office. And it was nice. It had steel case furniture in it. It was beautiful. And she said, how does this office make you feel? And my answer to her was, it works. And her response was, that's the problem. And I thought, what do you mean? And she said, you're at the stage in your life where you should be working less and enjoying more, because I put a lot of the energy into it. So she says, I feel like we should flip offices. So we did. My husband had an office downstairs that he never used, and I'm in that office now. It's a much smaller office. It overlooks the woods outdoors. And I did something I'd never done before, which was I started with how it felt aesthetically. And then I added the function, which was exactly the opposite of everything I'd ever done before. Before it was like, okay, function first. I got to have it work. And I traded it. Am I saying that's what you should do? I'm not. I'm just saying it's important to know what you need to make you feel good so you can accomplish your work and enjoy your life.
Awesome. Kathy has such a good point here. Burnout and decreased morale. Spinning your wheels in an environment that is not productive is like riding a bicycle with a flat tire. Lots of effort with little progress.
Oh, that's so true. That's a
Great
good analogy,
Kathy. All right. So number 8 let me just remind, if you're just joining in, what is clutter costing you? Number 8, damage to reputation. And I know, Barbara, you can probably speak to this as far as, making errors or not, not doing what kind of like what you said earlier, not doing what you said you were going to do. Another one is something I experienced many years ago. It was so funny. I walked into an attorney's office. It was a real estate transaction, so it was a real estate attorney. And I was brand new in your program. I had just become a certified consultant at that time, and I was so excited. So I walk in and I see all this paper. In this attorney's office, paper piled on desks, on filing cabinets, and it was dusty paper. I mean, it was everywhere. And so I was very tuned into it anyway, but you really couldn't miss it. Like, anybody that walked into the office would have seen that. And so I assumed that it was just an obvious thing and that it was a problem. So I told the attorney I said, I have my own business and I help people, declutter paper and then organize it so they can find anything that they file in seconds. And he was like, was completely disinterested in what I said and said, we don't have a problem with paper. I was like, you're kidding me, right? But I didn't say that. I was shocked. So that was the example, Beck, what you said at the beginning, where you just don't even see it anymore. People don't even see it. But guess what? That was, let's see, I've been working with you for 18 years. So that was at least 18 years ago. That was 18 years ago. I was brand new. So that was 18 years ago. And I am still telling that story, and I still know who that attorney is. So did that damage his reputation? I may not mean a whole lot to that particular person. But if people are walking into your place of business, or they're seeing your business and your Zoom background, it matters. It really does matter. So anyway, what are your thoughts on damage to reputation?
Well, I have another simple example of that, which happened to me many years ago. It's not as common now. You don't see it up, but it used to be, if you went into like a real estate office or something like that, the owner would have a book in the lobby of testimonials, and you could flip through the testimonials. And I remember I went into one real estate office and I opened it up, and their oldest testimonial was 6 years old. And I thought, that's like, so the word we use with productive environment is intentional. So the idea of having a book of testimonials in your lobby is a very, very good idea. But if the testimonials are years old, then that says that you're careless. I always remember there used to be an airline called Scandinavian Airlines. And I remember the CEO who had ADHD. I remember his wife his wife wanted him to take medicine for his ADHD, but he said he was afraid to because he thought it would stop his productivity. But he also said if a passenger opens the tray for the and it's dirty, that's what they think about the whole plane. Like if they're not taking care of the tray, the food tray, they're probably not taking care of the engine. So how we take care of one thing often indicates how we take care of another.
That's a really good point. Wow. All right, we're moving to number 9. Again, a lot of these things do overlap. So financial costs. I mean, we're talking about a lot of different things of clutter costing you, but let's talk about money. Staying on top of things. We're already talking about lost business. But what about, Barbara, when you lose things and then you buy more of those things because you can't find, like, that's costing us something, right?
Well, I have a client right now that literally has spent, and this is a large organization, they did not have a system for inventorying office supplies. They have spent thousands of dollars purchasing unnecessary office supplies because people didn't know that something was there, and it was just easier to jump on Amazon with their employee credit card and order something new. And that's exactly what they did. So that's one example of it. Another example on a kind of completely different side is the financial costs of your own lack of confidence. When you don't have a productive environment anywhere, it lowers your confidence. And when your confidence is low, then that means you're probably not asking for what you're worth. So that is the biggest cost that clutter is causing you.
That's a good one. That's a really good. Did you guys get that? Confidence. If you're surrounded by clutter in your workplace or in your workspace, you can't be feeling too confident. But again, I want to remind you, we're not doing this this is a pep talk. We're not talking down to you because we've all been there. We want to give you hope. And the acronym for HOPE for us is helping others pursue entrepreneurship. And a big part of the way we help people do that is helping them organize their time, space, and information, both in the physical space and in their digital space. So number 10 is legal and compliance risks. Again, a little bit of overlap, but Barbara, what are your thoughts on legal and compliance risks?
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but when I see the word legal, I get a knot in my stomach. There are just, so many things that can go awry in that direction. And I think the most important thing is to, again, be intentional about it. If you are in business, you should make sure that you understand the things that you need to have in place legally. I had an example where years ago, actually when I wrote Taming the Paper Tiger, and I trademarked the paper tiger. And because someone else told me, I would probably not have known. One of the things I love is how your friends watch out for you. And somebody told me there's a company in Kansas City that's promoting this big seminar called Taming the Paper Tiger. And I went back, and lo and behold, they had, it was a really big deal. They had a website much nicer than mine. They had this seminar, whatever. Well, I was able to go back and track when I had first used the term the paper tiger. And as a result of it, I was able to shut down that whole thing because I had the paper. In those days, it was a paper document. That was the piece of paper that showed when I had first used that. So it is important. It's something we don't like to think about, but it is important to make sure that we have legal things in place and that we are complying with rules and regulations.
Mm-hmm. Another good recent example, Barbara, I didn't even tell you this. So one of our colleagues, Ann Cueva, she teaches a course called, and she wrote a workbook called Grief Without Chaos. And it's all about pulling together your information so that you can give it to someone else in case something happens to you. And so, you're incapacitated or you die, like who's going to take care of things? Where's your password? We have so many stories about why that's really important for someone else to be able to have your information. But and my mom and I were going through the course together, and so she's at home at her office going through her stuff, and going through her papers, and she found my will that I forgot that I even did. I didn't even know I had it. I have been divorced for 13 years, but I have a will on paper leaving everything to my ex-husband. So that is a legal compliance risk. So because I didn't keep track of it, I didn't keep up with it. I mean, I assume if my mom has a copy, that means I have a copy somewhere here in my stuff, in my paperwork. So that tells me that I need to go through and do a file clean out, because maybe are there things in your files or on your desk in your piles that maybe need to be destroyed, that aren't timely anymore, they're not accurate anymore. So I think that is something I never would have thought of until she told me, hey, I found your will and you might want to update it. Thank you, Anne, for your class. So yeah, that's a big one. So guys, these were the top 10 hidden costs of clutter. Hopefully you took some notes. If not, you can go back through this video again and really think about, did we not hit on something that you have discovered that is costing you something? Maybe we missed something. Let's see. Kathy says, my extensive HR background knows this is 100% true. Sometimes what you keep puts you at risk. Oh my goodness. Yes.
That's the truth. I had a client many years ago that I told them, I recommended that they have a file cleanout day in their company. They did not, because they said it wasn't billable time and they couldn't afford to do it. And then they were subpoenaed in a lawsuit, and they found a document in the files which had never been signed and should not have been in there at all. But the prosecuting attorney used that document to prove that their intention was such and such. And as I recall, it cost them $365,000. And I had to refrain from saying I would have been a lot cheaper than $365,000.
Wow.
That's really true. Andrea, I know we're coming to the end of the show. I want to make sure that what doesn't happen out of this is that people just feel like, okay, I'm just overwhelmed. There's just no hope. Because our whole goal, as you pointed out earlier, is to give people hope.
Right.
So I want to suggest two things. One is, part of solving this problem is doing it all the time. I mean, it's like not making it a project, but making it a way of life, a way of being. So that when you're looking at something, when you're seeing something, whether it's in your spice drawer or in your closet or in your email, and you can just subconsciously say, what's the worst thing? We call it the art of wastebasketry. What's the worst thing that would happen if I didn't have this? And if you can live with it, get rid of it now, and make it easy to get rid of things. Know how to get rid of things. Have a donation box in your closet so that if you put something in there, whatever it is, to make it easy. So that's one thing to do. You can do that. We can all do it. I do it all the time. When I grew up, we lived on the second floor of a tenant farmhouse. And my mother had this thing where she would say, we used to put things on the stairs that needed to go up, because like we were going up, we couldn't carry it all. So we'd put something on. And my mother would say to me, if you're going upstairs, take something with you. That is so embedded in my mind right now that if I'm on the stairs and I see something that's there, I cannot go past it. I mean, it's like I just literally, because it has been ingrained in me for at least 73 years. I mean, when I was a little girl, that was it. Well, we can have the same thing about getting rid of clutter. Do I really need this? And whatever it is, if you don't, do it. So make decluttering a way of life. And then the second thing is to identify one area in here that really is troubling you, and don't try to do them all the same. You can do little bits on all of them, because everything we talked about, there are little bits. But have a plan. And one of the things we will do with you is, if you do our scorecard, we'll do a 30-minute call with you to get you on the right track, to help you decide, Pick one area and do that one, and then go to another. But do not try to do all things at one time, because you'll just feel more discouraged.
That's right. So we're going to add some links to the comments section in the description for you if you're on YouTube, and the comments if you're on some of our other platforms. But certainly, Barbara just mentioned our Productive Environment Scorecard. So you can go to productiveenvironmentscore.com. Also, you can go to productiveenvironment.com/webinar. And depending on when you're watching this video, if you're watching it live with us right now, then you will have an opportunity, actually just for the next 11 hours and 20 minutes to watch our webinar called Less Clutter, More Clients. And again, depending on when you're watching this and you go to that link, the webinar may be about digital clutter. We talk about physical clutter and your office transformation on one, and then there's another one that we talk about digital clutter and your digital space. So both of them are important. And I haven't met anyone, Barbara, that didn't have challenges with both. There's rarely somebody who says everything is perfect in my office, but my online stuff needs work, or vice versa. Usually there's room for improvement in both areas. And so definitely, regardless of when you're watching this, go check out that webinar.
And the interesting thing also is they carry over whatever you learn in one, because it's all about decision making. As I said before, the clue to this is learning how to make decisions. Clients often ask, how long is this going to take and how much is it going to cost? And my answer is, I can't tell you, because one thing is, I don't know how quickly you make decisions. So one of the things we've heard from our participants in the webinars over and over is, you've taught me how to make decisions. And then it doesn't matter if it's in your clothes closet, in your email, or on your desk, it will help you accomplish your work and enjoy your life.
That's right. Awesome. So again, the scorecard is free. The webinars are free. And then we do have some paid boot camps. We have one for your physical, one for your digital. Check them both out. We'll put the links in the description in the comments. And no matter when you're listening to this, please comment and let us know, did any of this resonate with you? What areas did you connect with? And we thank you for joining us for this episode of Pep Talk Productive Environment Podcast. And we will see you next time.
See you next week.
Bye.